Okay, today we're installing a Valentine 1 radar detector on a 2022 C8 Corvette Convertible 3LT. When you install the mount, you want to sit in the passenger side of the vehicle, and we recommend taking a towel and just covering up the dash here and especially the screen. Before you install our mount, the mirror tap power cord already has to be installed, which we've done here. So this is our C8 Corvette mount for the Valentine 1. We've got the bottom clamp and the top clamp here. So the first thing we do is we remove this right bolt from the bottom clamp. And then on this left bolt on the bottom clamp, we want to loosen that up about 2 to 3 revolutions. So we just took this bolt out. We want to rotate this bottom clamp about 180 degrees, which will allow us to slide the mount up onto the mirror here. So when you go to install the mount, it basically is going to wedge between the top of the mirror and the headliner. So the mirror tap is already installed. So before you go to install the mount, you want to make sure the mirror tap is on top of this right channel. Then you just basically push the mount up into position, and there's a positive stop as shown in the instructions that will limit the travel towards the rear of the vehicle. So once you have that in place, now we're going to take this bottom clamp and we're going to swing it around, and we're going to install that bolt back on the right side. If needed, you can position the mirror to give you access for the bolt here. So as you can see, the bolt is going to go right back into the top clamp, and we're going to start that with a couple of revolutions. So at this point, the mount is in position as far as front and rear. But now we want to center it side to side before we actually tighten these 2 clamp bolts. So you can see, it's pretty easy to see if it needs to move left or right. So it's pretty close to centered before you tighten the bolts. And at this point, each bolt is probably 3 revolutions, tightened up about 3 revolutions. So when we tighten these bolts here, the pad is going to compress against this portion of the mirror. And as we tighten, we want to alternate sides. We want to go a couple revolutions per side to kind of evenly tighten this mount. So I'll do it about 3 here, and then I'll slide the mirror over so I can get access to this other bolt. And we'll do about 3 revolutions there. These bolts are going to tighten as far as you can go. Basically, the bottom clamp is going to make contact with the top clamp. So at this point, the left one is fully tightened. And now the right side is fully tightened. So this top clamp is securely mounted to the mirror. So with this mount, we have a couple of pivots here, which will allow us to adjust the radar detector right where we want it. We also have a rotational adjustment here to where if you want the radar detector pointing perfectly forward, you can just leave it where it's at. But a lot of times the driver prefers the radar detector tilted a little bit towards the driver. So that's totally a preference, but that rotational device is with these two screws right here. So now I'm going to actually install the radar detector so I can kind of see where I want my adjustments. We recommend going as high as possible. You want to go not too high so you can still slide the radar detector out, but once you kind of get the radar close to where you think you want it, you can start snugging these adjustment bolts here. Kind of hold it in place. And we also have a vertical adjustment with these two screws up here. So I'm going to go ahead and move that all the way upward and tighten one of those for right now. So at this point, I can, since I just snugged one side of these adjustments, we can actually move the radar detector and it'll stay, so we can make sure we like where it's adjusted. So like I said, you want to make sure you don't go up too high to where you can't release the Valentine one. So at this point, I'm able to release it. And it's a lot easier to do when you're sitting on the driver's side for installing the radar, or removing the radar detector. So that's about where I'm going to want this radar detector. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten these bolts, these adjustment bolts. There's two on this side, and there's two on the other side. So this is aircraft grade aluminum. So when you do make your final adjustments and you go ahead and you tighten the mount, make sure you really tighten it. You won't strip out this aircraft grade aluminum. So now all I have left is that rotational device I was telling you about. So this is pointing perfectly forward, and a lot of times we find that people like to adjust it so the face of the radar is facing the driver. Totally up to individual preference, but once you kind of get that figured out, you can just go ahead and tighten those bolts. If you can't get to those bolts there, just remove the radar and then get these two bolts here. And then you can plug in your mirror tap power cord. You could get a little creative on how you want to route that. We include a couple of tie wraps in the kit, so you could actually tie wrap that out of the way here to your preference. Okay, we'll go ahead and start. You're good to go.